I want to take the time to talk about Mrs. Candace Owens. In her episode called My Thoughts on Homosexuality,
A Gallup poll found that today 7.1% of adults in the United States identify as either lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, or something other than straight or heterosexual.
I get a lot of her content pushed to me on Facebook. All the time I get Candace Owens shows. So I'm like, let me hear what this girl got to say.
Now, 7.1% today, but in 2012, 10 years ago, that number was 3.5%. So what changed? How did we more than double the amount of adults that identify as LGBTQ or something other than heterosexual since 2012? That just feels a little bit impossible to me.
I find it interesting that she talks like more people identifying as LGBTQ is somehow a problem. And the Gallup study that she mentions says that most people in this study most commonly identify as bisexual. Most bisexuals end up with the opposite gender. The study just shows you more people are just honest about how they identify.
So first and foremost, a few years ago, it seemed a little bit innocuous at the time, but now it has a lot more meaning. I was walking down the street in Washington, D.C. with an immigrant, a person that was from Eastern Europe and was visiting the United States. There is a high presence, particularly along 14th Street, of lesbian and gay people. And they asked me this question very seriously. They said, Candace, why are there so many gay people in America? Then said to me, well, we just don't have this many gay people in Eastern Europe. Well, it's probably just cultural differences. Maybe you actually do have that many gay people and you just don't realize it because they're scared to come out, right? That's the idea. They're trembling in a closet everywhere else but in America because we've become open and we've become accepting. Now, Eastern Europe is not Saudi Arabia. You're not going to get thrown off of buildings for being gay. And yet, this person was telling me that this seemed bizarre to them, that there were this many people waving rainbow flags, this many gay couples walking down the street.
Here's a map of the world where it's more accepting of queer people. In the Middle East, it is very white. Now, I hate how she's relating Saudi Arabia where it's extremely not accepted compared to the green where it is actually very accepting of queer people. They're even very accepting of queer people in Brazil. In Western Europe, it's really green, and in Eastern Europe, it's kind of on the whiter green side because they haven't had as a big queer movement like we did here in the US with the Stonewall riots that started in the late 60s. Western Europe had their own queer history as well, but I don't think Candace Owens really cares about queer history.
A second conversation, it was with a gay man that is conservative. There are a bunch of gay conservatives that do not have sex, right? So they acknowledge that they are gay, but they believe that it is the act of sodomy that the Bible condemns. And this individual is a gay Christian. He goes to church every Sunday, probably more than that. And he says, I do not engage in sexual relations as a gay man. And here's what he said to me, Candace, in my experience of all of the gay people that I have met in the gay community, probably only 10% of them, maybe even less, are actually gay. The rest of them have other issues going on. He used himself as an example. He said, for me, as an example, I have daddy issues. I grew up without a father in the home. And for me, establishing a relationship, some sort of a relationship as a gay man makes me feel like I'm getting that love that I missed. He also intimated to me that a lot of other people had been molested when they were children, and they had various reasons for becoming a part of the gay community consciously, right? So they're choosing to be gay, but they weren't born gay, since that always seems to be at the crux of the debate.
Here we go again, this stupid theory that gay men are only gay because they have poor relationships with their father. What about all the straight men who have poor relationships with their father? They didn't end up gay. I actually have a very good relationship with my father, and I actually know plenty of gay men who have good relationships with their father. Now, speaking on the topic of victims of SA, men are less likely to report, but even less with heterosexual men. Because heterosexual men have a lot more shame because they may be labeled as gay compared to gay men who already identify as gay, so that kind of shame goes away, so that's why they're more likely to report. She also mentioned men who are not actually gay. These are the men that society calls them gay because they sleep with men, but they don't identify as gay. These are not the men that you will find at the pride parades or the gay clubs. They're very down low, and you probably will find them in the apps or in one of those hookup areas where it's very discreet. And likely it's because of a trauma response. There are some gay conservatives who are actually pretty openly gay, married with a husband, but they just support conservative values. It's funny to me how she mentions only the gay conservatives that suppress their homosexuality and that live their lives and a lie.
It's understandable that if you had been harmed by an individual of a certain sex, that you would shy away from all healthy sexual relations with that particular sex. But is that the right thing, right? Instead of acknowledging that these people have been harmed and trying to help them, we now have a society that just celebrates it. They just say, oh, this is completely normal. It's just this, everything that you're feeling is completely normal and it's completely valid.
I have never been a victim of SA. Now, I grew up with a family who didn't praise me for my queerness. If anything, I was always corrected. I remember my sister always telling me, you're acting too gay, you need to tone it down a bit. It shouldn't matter that I have gay mannerisms. It shouldn't matter. That's part of me. I'm a gay man. Like, I cannot change that. And I'm not sharing this so that you can feel bad for me because my family didn't accept me for being gay. I'm sharing this because my experience is not unique. Most of LGBTQ people experience what I experienced. I know you hear nowadays how parents are now super supportive, how they're super praising of their queer child. I honestly envy that. I wish I had that because I wouldn't have needed years of therapy. And that's why I feel like a lot of LGBT people need therapy because of the rejection that we receive from our families and society. For generations, homosexuality has always been looked down upon. And I'm actually very fortunate that I can say that I reconnected my family and they learned to accept me, because there are some people in the LGBT community who still don't receive that closure, who still have to not talk to their parents because they still don't accept them, even though it's been years later for them. A lot of us gay men deal with what's called gay shame, where we feel ashamed for what we are. The only reason why people praise homosexuality is because of years of rejection, of hate towards queer people. It's making up for all of that. It is not allowing people to fake themselves. The only people who are faking themselves are the gay conservatives that you're talking about. That is not healthy to suppress who you are. You are homosexual, that is who you are. Suppressing them actually is a trauma response rooted from gay shame. And a lot of these men who you speak about as if they made the right choice for some reason, these men are more likely to unalive themselves later on in life.
We are seeing a higher incidences of individuals identifying as various things. In fact, now there's people that are identifying as animals and as cats and as dogs, because there is a suffering underneath that we are not acknowledging.
People identifying as pets, cats and dogs, that has nothing to do with the LGBTQ movement. So please stop that. You're only just saying words.
Again, I don't have any answers to these questions. I think that it is worthy of discussion. It is worthy of deep consideration.
Please, Candace Owen, stop acting like you know anything about homosexuals or about the LGBTQ community, when in fact, all you're doing is spreading propaganda, perpetuating ideas that supposedly the LGBTQ community is turning everybody gay. We are turning people trans, when in fact that is not true. If you really want to know why there's more gay people openly gay here in America, then learn about queer history, learn about the Stonewall riots, learn why we celebrate Pride here and why they don't celebrate Pride in other parts of the world as much as we do. The first Pride was a riot. But of course, you're not going to talk about those things because that is not the narrative you want to tell. I agree on your anti-war rhetoric. I'm very anti-war. But please stop talking about certain things that you have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, girl, bye.